So we sat down today with Auction Direct over in the Victor location, and there's a few questions that I wanted to bring to Doc's attention. And Doc, thanks for taking the time to sit down with us here.
A pleasure.
And one of the questions was in regards to hydration, okay, and electrolytes. You know, it was brought up that Gatorade that can help replenish electrolytes, but a lot of people that don't have the background that you do don't necessarily know a lot about electrolytes. Can you fill us in a little bit about the basics of what an electrolyte is and its function?
Sure. In a nutshell, electrolytes are the chemicals that are dissolved in the blood, and they help carry electrical currents through the system, through the body, into the various cells. You also find them within the cells themselves, so it's a way of carrying information from one area to another. We lose electrolytes in our sweat. The theory behind drinks like Gatorade are to replace the electrolytes, but the reality is, unless you're doing 2-3 hours or so of continuous exercise, it's very intense. The amount of electrolyte loss that you're going to have is not going to necessarily need Gatorade to replace it. Water will do, any kind of drink that you enjoy will do. Gatorade in and of itself, the main benefit is not the electrolytes per se, although they do help the drink taste better when you're going through exercise. But as far as electrolyte replacement is concerned, it's not really that much electrolyte for it to help you perform better. What it does to help you perform better is really the sugar inside the Gatorade. Our body uses various things as fuels. Sugar is one of them. So sugar that's in the bloodstream that you absorb from your stomach right after you drink the Gatorade can be used as a fuel during exercise, so it helps you spare the sugars and the other fuels you store in your body.
Okay.
So it's more for the fact that the electrolytes are in there to help it taste good, so you'll drink more, and really that's the main benefit. You drink enough to replace what you're sweating out. But for the majority of people, the amount of sweat loss would have to be tremendous to really compromise the electrolyte status of the body.
Okay. So one of the other questions we got today is, how are electrolytes produced? And I think you answered at the beginning, but can you touch, are those naturally produced by our body, or are those things that have to be added to it?
We'll find those in our food.
What kinds of
living
food?
Every food's going to have the majority of the electrolytes that are used. Even if you look at a Gatorade bottle, it's sodium, chloride, potassium are the main electrolytes. And those sodium and chloride in particular are vast supplies in our food source. Potassium you'll find it in a lot of fruits like bananas. So a lot of the summer fruits are going to have high levels of that. So it's advantageous to eat those kind of foods to get your electrolytes and not rely on the Gatorade per se for the electrolytes. I would say Gatorade's a good drink for during exercise. If you're going to be out for at least an hour, exercising continuously. If you're not, a few cups of water here and there is going to do you just quite well. And you don't really need the Gatorade per se unless you like the taste.
So the last question that we had was an interesting one, and it was, how much water is too much? And is it 2 gallons? Is it a glass of water? Well, what's a good level of water intake for a day?
There's a saying in medicine, your stupid kidney's smarter than any doctor you know. So our kidneys are meant to balance our water among their many functions. And if you're drinking enough that you're urinating 6 to 8 times a day, the urine is not that dark, the pale yellow color, straw color, and it's clear, then you're probably getting enough hydration for the day. If your weight is staying more or less the same from one 24-hour period to another, you're staying well hydrated. Best way to tell if you're well hydrated for a given amount of time would be weigh yourself in the morning, check yourself after your activity or after what you think has been a time during which you've lost a lot of water. Remember that our sweat comes from our bloodstream or from the plasma, the fluid that carries our blood cells. So there's only a finite amount. If you sweat profusely, you can theoretically lose enough fluids to become dehydrated, and then your blood flow is more sluggish, harder to get nutrients and energy to the body. So it does make sense to try to stay hydrated, especially in these hot and humid conditions we're facing now. But it's not likely that you get dehydrated unless you're involved in a sporting event that was quite intense, or out in the sun for hour after hour without having anything to drink.
Is there such thing as too much water?
Yes. There's water intoxication is a real risk. Most often it's seen in things like marathon running, believe it or not, because the slower the marathon runner, the more often they're going to go to every mile water stations, and they're going to take a big drink of water because, hey, I'm in a marathon, I need water. You'll see that the top competitors in a marathon are going to drink far less than those who are finishing in 5, 6, 7 hours or more. And that's the people for whom the risk of water intoxication is highest, not because they're running slowly, but because they're making so many stops and drinking so much water at those stops that they're putting in far more water than they're losing. And then you over-dilute your blood, and that causes an extreme risk.
So, what would be some recommendations that maybe aren't liquid-based for staying hydrated, or if we're running a marathon, what are some things that we can do, or even just exercising for that matter, to make sure our body's in optimal performance and stay hydrated? Is it salt tablets, food?
I think you have to separate those questions into the event that we're talking about. In general, fruits and vegetables are full of fluid. Every food has some amount of water in it, even meat. So the more fruits and vegetables you eat, the higher your water content's going to be just from your diet. In that case, you can drink for your thirst, or drink in response to your thirst. And then when you're exercising, keep an eye on how much fluid you're losing. So if you have a specific exercise program you're following, you know that you weighed X amount before the exercise and you've lost more than a pound immediately after the exercise, and I would caution you to weigh yourself either with no clothes on or with dry clothes on before and after, so the sweat caught in your clothes is not adding false weight to you. But if you've lost more than a pound, then you should compensate for that by taking time and a half above that. So a pound is 16 ounces. So you would take 16 ounces plus a half, so 24 ounces of fluid over the next hour. You don't have to chug it because you'll just urinate that out quickly. But a little bit of water or the liquid of preference over the next hour to total 24 ounces for each pound lost makes sense, because then you'll correct any of the losses you've had. If you've lost less than that and you're thirsty, go ahead and drink to your comfort level, but there's no quote-unquote need to drink. Lots of athletes like to drink throughout the day, but remember, they're losing a lot of sweat during the day from very intense exercise and or prolonged exercise and or multiple sessions of both. So they need that extra bit. But I wouldn't go to a 1 gallon fits all, because people who are 120 pounds are doing that and people who are 320 pounds doing that. The good recommendation is 3/4 of your weight in pounds is the number of ounces you should have. So if you weigh 200 pounds, 3/4 of that would be how much you drink. So with easy math, if you're 150 pounds, you want to get about 115 ounces of fluid.
Okay. Yeah, no, Doc, I appreciate you sitting down with us and sharing with us the wonders of water and hydration and whatnot. Hopefully we can answer a few more questions, so keep them rolling in. If you do have any other questions, if you have any specific questions, you can always call us directly and we can schedule a time to sit down with Doc and go over your specific needs. With that being said, Doc, thanks again for sitting down with me this